What up, guys? Happy sixth weekend of House of the Dragon. Welcome to my House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 6 predictions. My title prediction for this episode will be Harrenhal. And again, guys, this video will contain some potential spoilers, and please like and subscribe if you can to the page. It means a lot. So I had a rough week last week in terms of accurate predictions. I mean, I did say I'd probably have a rough week. We will get into that in a bit of how I did. But before we get into the video, guys, I wanted to briefly share my thoughts on the season in the last episode. It feels appropriate where we are in the season, but I personally thought last weekend's episode was probably the weakest episode we have seen in all of House of the Dragon. Some may disagree, but that is my opinion. I'm just starting to get a little worried about the pacing. It seems a little too dialogue driven, and there does not seem to be enough just general action or battles. Like I see a lot on people on like X or Instagram or et cetera, like saying like not every episode is going to be like tons of battles, but it's like there's only 8 episodes, guys. So first of all, you can't really compare it to Game of Thrones because there's only 8 episodes compared to 10, and like we're not, guys, we're not asking for that much. Like we're just not asking for, in my opinion, of scenes of dialogue and dialogue and dialogue. And like, don't get me wrong, guys, a lot of the dialogue was like pretty solid from the last episode. After I rewatched it, but like still like 20% of it was kind of unnecessary. And again, there was no action battles at all. And I mean, if I'm being honest, I think the only really good episodes of the season was episode 4, and I thought episode 2 was really good as well. Like I thought the first episode was slightly above average, and then I thought 3 and 5 were pretty weak. So I mean, I'm a little concerned, but um, I did just want to share my opinion because I am still somewhat optimistic about, but I truly hope this episode picks up a little in terms of pace, because if not, I just won't understand the overall pacing. Like they're gonna have to rush 7 and 8 with what I think is gonna happen. Um, and I will admit it's getting a little challenging to make accurate predictions at this point because the showrunners seem to be swaying off course from the book at this point. But again, I'll try my best, guys. I'll also have one bonus prediction that I will count as like 0.5 points instead of a full point. And I'm going to say it again, guys. Please like and subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, so I did pretty poorly, so I definitely owe some beer drinks here. I'm going to take a big sip here, guys. So how did I do on episode 2, season 2, episode 5? The episode was called Regent. 2 out of 5, pretty poor. I got Melee's being dragged through King's Landing, correct. I got Aemond officially becoming Prince Regent, and I did get Corlys becoming Hand, but I honestly thought we'd see something in the Reach, some conflict. We did not, and I thought we'd see the Dragon Seeds by now because, again, it's almost like we're getting to the end of the season here, and I thought we would see the Stormcloud Aegon the Third action. But again, I was sadly wrong on the last 3 and right on the first 2. So this is actually my worst week, guys, generally speaking. So I definitely owe you 2 here. All right. So prediction 1: Aemond and Criston march for Harrenhal, and the Lannister host crosses into the Riverlands. So again, I always recommend reading the quotes. I think these are some pretty strong quotes I got here, guys, and they're pretty succinct. And I do think this will all happen. I got some maps for you guys, and arrows pointing to where the Lannisters are going, the Lannister army, and where Aemond and Criston's army is going is on the left. So quote number 1 is interesting because it's contradicting to as what we know in the show. A lot of Riverlords do not seem to be siding with Daemon due to his war crimes on the Brackens, as we hear at the end of episode 5. But I still think Aemon will fly Vhagar and order his troops to march to Harrenhal because Aemon does see his uncle as the biggest threat. At this point in time, I do not think Aemon will see Rhaenyra on Dragonstone as a threat at all. I mean, Vhagar could probably take out Syrax, Moondancer, and Vermax all at the same time. Like, it'd be close. It'd be a good battle. That is, and this is a little caveat, guys. That is why that quote when Rhaenyra says like Syrax is quicker than Vhagar. I kind of thought that quote was stupid. I'm like, Rhaenyra, if you went up against Aemon and Vhagar, you would get destroyed. Like Melee's is like probably 1.5, 1.7 times the size of Syrax, and Melee's, didn't really stand a chance. Like Melee's had like a 5% chance in that battle. So it's like, I just thought that quote was kind of silly. I think that was from episode 4 or 5. But the second quote is describing Aemon's plans to secure the Riverlands. He and Cole will march on Harrenhal from the east, and Jason Lannister's army will march over the Red Fork and come at Harrenhal from the west. Again, you can see the Lannisters are gathering at the Golden Tooth, which you can see on the right map, and they're going to try and cross the Red Fork, which is right over Pink Maiden, and just march on to Harrenhal from there. But in quote 3, the first part is talking about how Aemon's council, Alicent, Orwyle, Jasper Wild, and Tylan wanted him to wait for his brother Daeron and Tessarion from the Reach, and or for the Stormlanders / Baratheons to come and support him. Criston, though, actually does go along with Aemon's plans, because Criston just loves, I honestly think Criston loves violence and war, truthfully, even though in the last episode we saw he was scarred, but he goes along with Aemon's plans and probably will in the episode. However, as we can see from the third quote, Aemon is impulsive and does not really have the patience for this. This quote really does highlight Aemon's extreme arrogance, narcissism, and impulsiveness as a character, which I actually talked about in one of my first videos, the Team Green breakdown with Aemon. So you can go check that out for a breakdown of Aemon's character. But anyways, that is my prediction 1, and it ties directly into my prediction 2. The Lannister host crossing forces the Riverlords to side with the Blacks, and Daemon leaves Harrenhal. So a lot of fans are going to be happy probably, because I think we're going to finally get to see Daemon leaving Harrenhal in this episode. And again, guys, these quotes are pretty good here, and they tie in from the first prediction. So definitely, again, recommend reading those. And what I think will happen here is Daemon will eventually leave Harrenhal, realizing that he can no longer stay there, and he must head back to Dragonstone. I think this will also lead to the rest of the Riverlords siding with the Blacks. The Riverlords are going to be invaded from the west, and the Lannister force, and this will, the Lannister force is obviously marching west, which I said, and this is, again, guys, if you read the second quote, that's what you're going to want to focus on here. And this will make them push back away from the Greens. This would also make sense, too, because at this point in the books, the entirety of the Riverlands is on the Blacks and Daemon's side. In fact, once Daemon realizes that the Riverlords are on his side and Aemon and the Lannisters are marching on Harrenhal, he will feel confident enough to leave the stronghold and again head back to Dragonstone. Poor Simon Strong. Aemon is probably going to do pretty bad things to him in episode 7, and that's all. Sorry, I had to zoom in, guys. That's all I'll say on that one. But again, that first prediction will kind of lead into the second prediction with Daemon basically predicting that Aemon's going to come, or knowing that Aemon will come, and he'll feel confident in leaving Harrenhal and the stronghold, because I think at this point the Riverlords will be on the Black side, because again, I don't know how you can really go away from the entire Riverlands not be on the Blacks, because it just doesn't really make sense. But again, I could be wrong on that. Your chug. Okay, so prediction 3. Team Black and Mysaria's propaganda, it's not really propaganda, but, kind of political propaganda, causes chaos in King's Landing and leads to a full-on riot. So this prediction is not book canon, so I do not have quotes, but something the show will most likely do. We do see something crazy in the trailer with Alicent and Helena, so again, I'm not saying this is an extremely bold prediction, as you can see to that far right image from the trailer. But I think what will happen is that the small folk of King's Landing are already starving, scared, and upset, and even the smallest thing will turn them mad. We see in the prior episode that Mysaria sends Alinda Massey to King's Landing to stir some shit up, and we see that she meets with Diana, the serving girl Aegon violated in season 1. We see Diana and Alinda meet at the end of episode 5. So what they'll do is they'll spread the word of what Aegon II did to her, and this will cause enough anger with the already, starving and impatient small folk, and this will lead to a full-on riot in the city. This will definitely weaken the Greens significantly, because now the small folk are pretty much going to be entirely against them, because they're starving. I don't think they like the whole dragon thing that Criston thought that was a really good idea, but they freaked them out. And also another important point on that, when Criston is going through King's Landing with Meleys' head, that makes the small folk realize that maybe the Targaryens aren't so strong after all, because dragons can be killed. So look out for that one. But again, this is my third prediction. Team Black and Mysaria's propaganda causes chaos in King's Landing and leads to a full-on riot. And guys, we also saw that in season 2, episode 4 of Game of Thrones, I think maybe it's episode 5. Could be wrong on that. It's either episode 4, 5, or 6 of season 2 of Game of Thrones when Joffrey, because he's such a bad king and all the people are starving in King's Landing, they like start a huge riot. And you know what happens if you've seen Game of Thrones. I won't get into that. But I could also see this causing some extreme hardship for Helena and making her go into this extreme form of depression and paranoia we hear about in the books during this time. So actually during this time, Helena's like in this weird form of like depression and paranoia. I mean, obviously from her son getting his head chopped off in front of her. So I think this will kind of tie in like this, even though it's not directly what happens in the book, because what happens again in the book is Helena's all paranoid and depressed from her son getting her head chopped off, which she kind of is in the show. But I think this will be the turning point essentially in driving her into that like madness almost. Almost one beer down. Okay, guys. I know this is a repeat prediction, but again, I just don't think they can get rid of prediction 4, whereas the Triarchy joins the Greens, Aegon III flees with Stormcloud, and Viserys II gets captured by the Triarchy and their pirates. I know this is a repeat prediction, but the reason I don't think they can get rid of this is because this is like a triggering point for a big battle that'll either happen in this season, late in this season, or next season. So I don't think they can get rid of this. I mean, they already mentioned Stormcloud, so it's like I think they're going to show us Stormcloud, and I think this is how they're going to show it to us because this is like the only time we see Stormcloud, because unfortunately Aegon flies on Stormcloud trying to get away, but he gets so many arrows, but he still manages to take him all the way back to Dragonstone, so Aegon can tell Prince Jacaerys and Rhaenyra, his mother, of what happened. This will definitely probably cause Rhaenyra into a extreme form of madness and anger, like Helena from the last slide, because like this will be another triggering point. Because not only is one of her dragons done and one of her sons is scarred, but her other son, Viserys II, is taken captive by the pirates. And the actress you see, oh my gosh, I literally am drawing a blank on her name right now, but I apologize. The actress you see will be playing like the head pirate, Shakaro Lohar. Um, so I think, is she Tyroshi? No, I think she's from Lys. But yeah, she's from Lys, and she'll capture Viserys second, and we will see what happens with that. With that, I'll do another beer chug before the bonus prediction, guys. I have a bonus prediction this week, which I also somewhat mentioned in my video I posted yesterday on the Dance of the Dragons geography to as where we are up to now. All right, let's get into it. Prediction 5. Again, a bonus prediction. Otto visits Highgarden and convinces the Tyrells to join the Greens. So at the end of episode 2, when Otto was dismissed by Aegon, we hear that he wants to go back to Old Town to help raise Daeron, his youngest grandson. And again, guys, huge Daeron the Daring fan. I do need to find a bottle opener real quick, guys, because, oh, there it is. Because, sorry, that was not part of the script, but because I still owe another beer. But again, so at the end of episode 2, when Otto was dismissed, we hear that he wants to go back to Old Town to help raise Daeron, his youngest grandson, who is probably the most likable Green because, he's not like a piece of crap like Aegon, and he's not a total violent psychopath like Aemond. And I mean, who can't like love Elena, right? Like who can't like her? But she's probably gonna go like what I just said into some form of depressive state where you're still gonna be like empathetic towards Helena, but you won't be able to like, really be like, oh, she's awesome. Like you're just gonna be apathetic and sad about her. But Daeron the Daring is awesome. And quick little fact about Daeron the Daring. A lot of Targaryen kings after this war, not a lot, just 2, but there's other named Daeron, were named Daeron because of Daeron the Daring. So he kind of started like the Daeron name line, kind of like how Aegon started the Aegon line. So that's a fun little fact for you. And another fun fact before I continue this prediction, guys, is no other king or Targaryen names their kids either Maegor or Aemond after this war. Specific, like no one names Maegor because he was cruel and crazy. Names their kids, and no one's going to name their kids Aemond after this war. So that's saying something. But continuing on to the prediction, Alicent tells Otto, do not do that. You should try to go to Highgarden and try to convince the Tyrells to join our cause. Otto surprisingly agrees with his daughter because, honestly, it's shocking when Alicent can tell Otto to do something. We only see that once before when she is talking about, the Aegon coronation. She basically bosses Otto around, but that's like the only time we see that before. So my prediction here is that Otto will use his typical political tactics and manipulation to convince the Tyrells to join the Greens, claiming it will be in their best interest. What is interesting about this prediction is that the Tyrells stay neutral throughout the war because their kingdom, the Reach, is entirely divided. I do recommend you watching the video again I put out yesterday on the Dance of Dragons geography at this point for more information around this, as in who's on which side, blacks or greens in the Reach at this point, because the Reach is one of the most divided kingdoms like the Crownlands and Riverlands. But I do think this could be a good change from the books and will allow the fans to see Highgarden again and the Tyrells. I think they're going to bring this in, guys, because I've noticed they're bringing like the major houses, like the Tullys, the Aarons, So I think they're going to bring in the Tyrells and not just keep them out because fans know who the Tyrells are, like you casual fans from Game of Thrones. So I think it makes sense too from like a show perspective. With that, that is all I really have for you today, guys. I'll do one other chug because I really struggled again with my predictions. Again, I'm really hoping this episode is stronger than the last one and has more action, but we shall see. I will say the director, he directed episode 4, which was like by far the best episode of the season. So there's definitely some hope there. But thanks everyone. And again, please try and like and subscribe if you can. I really appreciate it. And cheers.